Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Cross-Border Logistics Summit. I'm FreightWaves reporter Noi Mahoney, and I'm excited because we're going to talk about foreign trade zones and trends in international trade. And our guest is Jorge Canavati, principal at J. Canavati and Company LLC. Jorge, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Noy. It's good to be here as always. Good to see you. And our topic is very important. Thank you that we're going to have it. Thanks.
Yeah, and before we jump into it, can you just give our audience just a little bit of background about yourself and what your company does?
Yes, I've been in the international trade and logistics business I, s- more than I want to remember for many decades now. And it's been in my DNA for many years. I've been involved in ports. Many years ago, I was the manager for Latin America for the Port of Houston. I moved to San Antonio. Uh, I was offered the position of the International Logistics VP for Port San Antonio, and right now, our little consulting firm, which I've had some years now, we do consulting. We do project development for companies from around the world that have, we're very linked to North America. We're very linked to Mexico, which has been our basis. And we also provide logistics services. However, to be clear, we focus on smaller companies. My theme is the larger guys don't need us really. But we just focused a lot on the smaller companies that I have always had a need, to get the story straight, to get exactly what they need, someone to tell them what they need, how to get it done, and take the anxiety out of their international moves. And we've been pretty successful at it, just helping small companies.
That's wonderful, and there's so many small companies, especially here in South Texas, that need that kind of help from experts like you guys. And so, I guess for our audience members, who most of our audience probably are in the trade community, they know what foreign trade zone is. But sort of just to go over it, can you talk about foreign trade zones and how they operate?
Sure. These are designated areas throughout the United States that are, they're outside what is known as U.S. Customs territory. They're outside, even though you're physically in the United States, you're not in the United States for thinking about, you're in the stream of commerce. Okay. So they're specially designated areas where you do not pay duties, you do not because you're not in the stream of commerce. There are many rules and regulations, audits by U.S. Customs. You have to follow the rules very carefully. Uh, and there could be warehouses, there could be distribution centers, whole complete port terminals, such as the Port of Corpus Christi are foreign trade zones, and it's a very important financial tool that you have at your disposal to manage your imports and your re-exports as well.
That's very interesting, and I'm a little embarrassed to say I didn't realize the entire port of Corpus Christi is a foreign trade zone. Is that right? Wow, that's
And there's a story behind it. I think that, yeah, I used to be their consultant for many years, and what let me tell you, the story that I love to tell is, and they're importing oil from other countries, and the oil is processed at the refineries to process to jet fuel, and this jet fuel then is shipped by duct by pipeline to DFW Airport, and then it is loaded on aircraft, foreign flag aircraft. Okay, not U.S. flag, foreign flag aircraft that is going to go somewhere else. That oil and that ultimate jet fuel pays zero duties. That's a story. It's an old story, true story, and it just tells you how foreign trade zones work.
yeah, that's right. So importers and manufacturers, they can avoid tariffs or duties by using foreign trade zones as long as those products don't enter the domestic supply chain, like here in the
Yeah,
United States?
right. Stream of commerce of the United States. But it's not an issue of avoiding per se. It's an issue of, as an example, you have manufacturers, companies that just do assembly. You can bring in parts and raw materials from other countries, and this is again an example, right? And they go into your facility that is designated a foreign trade zone, and you assemble a product. You assemble a product, right? With those raw materials and with those parts. That product is shipped out to another country and you don't pay duties. Okay. Why is this important? Because you are fostering, good economic activity. You are fostering jobs. It's a great tool. Foreign trade zones are an extraordinary tool. They're not cheap. But if you know what you're doing, they work wonders.
Yeah, that's a great point. You also brought up about how they are producing jobs such as, jobs at ports, jobs for drayage drivers, truck drivers here in the United States. Even though those products might not enter the domestic, supply chain, they're still producing jobs here in the United States or wherever those products are moving.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Usually, foreign trade zones are located near, let's say, a U.S. Port of entry where you have the Federal Inspection Services, CBP, Customs and Border Protection, but not necessarily. You have them in various parts of the United States. As I mentioned, they could be a manufacturer, and so on. And you as a potential user, you don't have to go through all the process to be designated a foreign trader. You would just go talk to a facility such as a distribution center that is designated when already. And then you just agree on terms. You agree on what the rates are going to be, and you operate as if you were operating in a normal warehouse, just because your landlord is technically the foreign trade zone operator.
And what type of products or even industries could benefit, from forward train zones?
That's a long list. I mean, that's it's everything from automotive, pharmaceuticals, oil, petroleum. We can just give you the example, machinery, renewable energies. It's just the list is very, very long. There's and again, it's managing like right now, all these challenges we're going through with tariffs. And I've been talking to various colleagues and friends that operate foreign trade zones. They're chock a block. Everyone is pushing into foreign trade zones, the imports, because it is still very foggy. And I'm being very kind right now with my wording. It's very foggy. It's very funky. We don't know what's really going to happen. So everyone is pushing their imports into foreign trade zones until we get some sort of direction. To be clear, you're not avoiding duties because sooner or later, you're going to have to pay duties unless you decide not to do the entry and you re-export that product. But as we spoke about recently, you and I, let's say you bring in 50 containers, instead of paying duties on all those 50 containers, you put them in a foreign trade zone and you just pay duties on what is needed by your customer. One container every month, and so you're managing, the duties, because it is still very confusing. There's no clarity. One day you're paying 130% tariff for products from China, and then the next day we're putting this on hold. We're bringing it down. We don't know what's going on, and the industry it's hurting, because there's no clarity, and it's hurting uh, the retailers, it's hurting the importers, and ultimately, it's hurting the consumer.
Mm. Yeah, we spoke last week, or I was listening to a different webinar that you were a part of, and you told this really interesting story about how you helped the client using forward trade zones. I was wondering if you could tell that story again.
This is a very small client, very small customer, an entrepreneur. a young mother with twins, three young children. They're not even 5 and 6, and she's an entrepreneur. She is in Mexico. She lives in Mexico, Guadalajara, and she sells to Amazon in Mexico and the US. And so she has a supplier. She sells a product that she gets from China. She sources in China, and it so happened for her US Amazon operation. I'm sorry, I don't know if I should say names on the show here, but and so uh regretful, if the product would have been already on the water, it would be quote unquote grandfathered in. Okay, would the tariff would happen, and it wouldn't pay that tariff because it's already being shipped. It's already in the process. Regretfully, her shipment was still on the dock in China. Very small shipment. She's a small company, $11,500. And while we were doing all this in the system, it so happens that I'm seeing a $26,000 or $28,000 tariff she had to pay when it was going to come in. I didn't know how I was going to tell her. I didn't have the heart to tell her. I finally had to tell her, and she said, "I can't pay that. I'm going to lose everything." And then I said, "Your other option is abandon the freight." Well, she would lose the cost of the freight. And then I thought about it and I said, "No." So the product got to the port of LA, and I told the custom house broker, "Don't do the entry, bring it into foreign trade zone," which he did. And then with a bonded carrier, we moved it into Mexico, where our customer is now selling the product a little bit more pricey because she had, these extra costs that were not budgeted, but she's now selling the product to her clients on Amazon, or to her customers on Amazon Mexico. But we had to make a quick decision. So we didn't do the importation into the States. We didn't do the entry. We put it into a foreign trade zone. And then we moved it by over the road, it has to be bonded carrier. Okay. If not, they can't do it. It's very, very illegal if you do it, if you move that without a bonded carrier. And we moved it to bonded facility in Laredo. We did the entry into Mexico and then on into Guadalajara, where she is selling it now online. That is one small, tiny example of the tens of thousands of issues that are going on right now. And you heard one of my speakers that day that was going through even more challenges. Another small business, there's one of the cable news companies consistently now is interviewing small businesses in the United States that are going through these issues. So, but that's not the point today. The point is that foreign trade zones are very good tools to use for very different things in foreign trade.
And I know we're sort of running out of time, but my last question is, I know here in the United States, we have, I think, about 230 or so foreign trade zones. We also have foreign trade zones in other countries. Do you see, you know, people really turning to that solution, going forward, with all of this sort of uncertainty and disruption we have in the supply chain?
Yes, in fact, it's funny you should mention that because regretfully, we always learn our lesson the hard way. I mean, for an age, we used to promote the foreign trade zone here in San Antonio when I was at the port, and it's like promoting project, and no one would listen. Unless you're in the business, unless you would need it, and unless you're in the business, as I mentioned, no one really looked at a foreign trade zone, didn't want to understand what they were for. Perhaps hindsight is 2020. Perhaps some of our leaders here were not marketing it properly. But the thing is, now with these issues at hand, now it's important to everybody. And everyone's scrambling. When they had the opportunity to look at this, before the quote unquote emergency, right? And now people are learning that foreign trade zones have a huge purpose. The United States is so wonderfully geographically located. It could we, for instance, it would be nice that we can start promoting the U.S. as a manufacturing center for third countries. You bring in your parts or raw material. We talked about this earlier. From third countries, you can assemble here and then you go on somewhere else. Uh, it's there are many companies. Well, maybe not many, but there are a lot of companies in Houston that do that. Houston, there's a lot of Houston being we're the largest international trade center in our region. So there's a lot of people in Houston that use foreign trade zones for assembly, right? Big deal in the automotive.
Well, Jorge, I think we're just about out of time, but I really want to thank you for joining us today and sharing your expertise. And where can people go if they want to learn more about your company?
No, they shouldn't waste their time. No, I'm kidding. J Canavati and Company. That's JCanavati.com. JCanavati.com. And my email, more than happy to chat with people. Small caps JC at jcanavati.com. JC at JCanavati.com.
All right, Jorge, thank you so much again.
What a privilege, Noi. Thank you so much for having me on.